Hi everyone, I'm Erin.
I'm Carmela. For those of you that don't know, we are from NSphere, College Planning Services. What we are is we are a full-service college planning and preparation firm. Some of you are clients currently, so if you're local to the area, we're located right in Upper St. Clair, Pennsylvania. We do work with families on a one-on-one basis, and to date, we've been able to actually be fortunate enough to help over 600 families in their college journey. Right now, we are busy building our online presence. So there's actually a Facebook community group that you can join. The benefits of joining this group, you have access to daily questions, daily communication from individuals like Erin and myself. We answer questions on there, we take polls, and it's really just a good community to join if you're in that process. Something else, if you're not local, we are building online services. So those are now available for online college coaching, and that is something that we will talk about more at the end.
All right, so logistically, we're going to try to keep today's webinar to somewhere between 30 and 45 minutes. Full disclosure, when Carmela and I practiced yesterday, it went almost 2 hours. So what we've done, because we're just so excited about this topic, we have so much to talk about. So what we've done is tried to make it a little bit more concise. So we will definitely be keeping an eye on the time for today. And we'll definitely make sure to leave some room so that maybe the last 5 or 10 minutes we can answer a few questions for you. So on that note, during the webinar, if you do have any questions about anything that we're talking about, you can just type in the chat box that you'll see on the right-hand side of your screen. And so if we can test out and make sure that that works right now, if you don't mind just typing a little note to us so that we can see it and just make sure that you can see and hear us, that this is working. If you can just do that, we'll get started in just a couple of minutes. But as you think of questions as we go through these slides, just leave a question for us, and then, like I said, at the very end, we'll leave some time to answer those. So, so we're just gonna get started. So if you just give me a second, I'm gonna pull up our slides for you. And so basically, today we're going to be talking about the 10 secrets that college admissions officers won't tell you. And so we thought this would be a good topic to cover because we know that the college admissions process can be mysterious, it can be confusing, it can cause a lot of anxiety for families, but it does not have to be that way. So what we're going to do is cover these 10 secrets so that we can help you to maximize your chances of admission and also help to make your college journey a simpler process, something that's less stressful. So this is me. So my full name is Erin O.C. Frauenhofer. I know it's a super long last name, but I am the Director of Student Services here at NSphere. I got my master's degree from Brown University in secondary education. This is me graduating, all happy. I really enjoyed my time there. And what I love is this is just, and working with NSphere has really given me the opportunity to work with students one-on-one. When I graduated from Brown, I was working as a teacher for several years, but working with NSphere, it's really great to be able to build longer lasting relationships with students and with parents, and just working with families basically start to finish through the entire process. We have families who join us in middle school, and then we still meet and keep in touch even now that they're in college. So this has just been such an exciting and really fulfilling role for me, which is really nice. And so as the Director of Student Services, I basically oversee all of the academics. So that involves college admissions counseling, college application assistance, essay editing, pretty much anything that you can think of regarding academics and how to get your student into college. So my job basically is to keep students on track, give them the information they need, make sure they're meeting their deadlines on time. And so, you know, like I said, just working really closely with students on every piece of the puzzle. And so here's something that's kind of shaped my approach to the process, which is this belief that college shouldn't be a scary thing that happens to you. I think families instead deserve to have the help they need to take control of the process and make the best decision for the whole family.
Okay, and I said hello earlier, but my name is Carmela Stam, a little less complicated to pronounce, I know. But my role here at NSphere is I am actually the Director of Client Services. I have 2 bachelor's degrees from Allegheny College, one in political science and one in English. I also hold several financial licenses, and I have a financial background. My role here is actually to go ahead and help you on the financial side primarily and communicate with clients. We do assist in such things as filling out the financial aid forms and helping you understand them. We talk about award negotiations and even financial aid package negotiations when you get to the stage of actually being accepted into schools. And then the most important thing that we do here, I believe, is we help you set up an individualized college funding plan. What this means is we help you figure out how are you going to pay for college in a way that's going to help you maintain your lifestyle. We don't want you depleting the family bank or messing up your retirement. That's never our goal. And then my quote is, I believe that no 2 families are alike. And this is something I truly do believe. Only by providing individualized attention, both in terms of finances and academics, can we work together to create the best possible student roadmap to success. So throughout the process daily, Erin and I are working hand in hand to just kind of make sure that all of our families are having the best experience possible. With that being said, we'll jump right on into the 10 secrets that I know you've just been waiting for. The first secret, I think, is that college admissions officers, they do want as many students as possible to apply to this college, to their college, I should say. And this is very true. Colleges do care very much about their rankings and their reputation. These 2 things are extremely important to them. So when they receive tons and tons of applications, what this means is it's in essence creating a higher ranking for the college and making them seem more exclusive in reputation. The lower their acceptance rate, the more desirable and selective they seem. So the more applications they get, but the fewer applicants they accept, that just increases their popularity in their eyes. One thing I do advise students of is to just be aware of colleges' recruit to deny tactic. So if you have students that are maybe in junior year, starting to approach senior year, you're going to see a couple things. Your mailboxes are going to be overflowing with mail for them from different schools. And then their inbox, in terms of their email account, is going to be receiving tons and tons of messages as well. With technology, this is just easier now than ever for colleges to do. You will see phrases on these marketing materials, and be aware, there might be phrases that say, you know, this is only for VIPs, we're waiving the enrollment fee at this time, we are looking for students like you, they'll say, for students with more to offer than just test scores. But what this means is that even though they are bombarding you with brochures and emails, it may seem like they're actually begging you to apply. This may not be the right fit college for your student. So that's something to just go ahead and keep in mind. Right now, students apply to more schools than ever before. So this is a trend that's holding very true. For a college on average, I would say they actually have to now accept about 5 students for just one of those students to actually enroll. In a national study conducted from 1990 to 2012, they show that the percentage of students applying to 7+ schools has actually increased from 9 to 28%. Students applying to 3+ schools is up from 61 to 77%. Here at NSphere, this is what Erin does. She helps students build their college list, and we actually suggest applying to at least 8 to 10 schools. So colleges, they just want as many applicants as possible, regardless of how qualified they are.
Okay, so I'm going to tell a couple of stories here that I think highlight exactly what Carmela was just talking about. So the first student we had last year, and this was a student who had his heart set on attending American University, which is a wonderful school, but he'd gotten a lot of mail from them. He'd been emailing with his regional admissions representative, and he was convinced American really wanted him. exactly for reasons like those that Carmela explained. He was getting letters and mail from them saying, we want students just like you. And he was telling me about this. He was very excited, and he was convinced that this was where he was going to attend. He was positive he was going to be accepted there, even though in this student's case, his grades and his test scores were significantly lower than what you typically see from students who do get accepted there. So, and he basically had tunnel vision when it came to this school. So when spring rolled around, he got his rejection letter from American. They did not accept him. Thankfully, he had still taken our advice, and he had applied to 8 colleges in total. So I think he ended up with 4 acceptances in total. But by that point, it was so late in the game, he hadn't even really considered his other options that carefully. So he was basically left with a really short amount of time to go and visit those schools, talk to people, come to a final decision about where exactly he wanted to attend. And it was pretty much all because for this reason, he had just been convinced that this was the one school that really wanted him and this was where he was going. On the flip side, the student who we see pictured here, he did not let himself become too influenced by that promotional mail that he was receiving from his colleges. So what he did, which was wonderful, was he really took his time. He did his research about the colleges that he thought were the best fit for him. So he was very thoughtful, very deliberate about that part of the process. That's not to say he'd ignore the mail. He would look at his mail. He might save the ones from the colleges he was thinking about, but overall, he was just taking a much more measured approach to doing his research about his schools. And so in his case, this student who's actually a senior this year, he's already been accepted at all 8 of the colleges he applied to, which we're just so proud and so happy for him. And so this is just a case where he did such a good job of taking control of the process, focusing on what was really important and what mattered, and making sure he was applying to schools that were the right fit for him. And so secret number 2, early decision is in their best interest, not yours. This honestly is one of the biggest questions that we get from families every single year. And I think a huge piece of this is because colleges are really pushing early decision on students now more than ever. This year alone, I want to say that the number of students, or the percentage of students who have reached out to us, have said, it's pretty much tripled. That number has tripled in terms of the students that we're hearing from who have said that colleges are really telling them they should be applying early decision, they need to be doing this. And so, so there's a lot of reasons for that. But first, let's take a step back. And so basically, early action and early decision have very similar names, so people sometimes get confused about this. But early action and early decision, these are 2 early admissions options that some schools offer. Many schools do not, but some schools do offer these. And so basically, early action is good, early decision is bad. So why is this? That's because early action is a non-binding option. Early action means you apply sometime between October and November. You hear back from the school within a month or 2 about whether or not you got accepted. But it is non-binding. So you still have tons of time. You still have until May 1st to fully consider your other options and take a look at everything that everyone who's accepted you and everything they've sent you in regards to financial aid. So for that reason, early action can only help you. So that's only a good thing. Early decision, however, is bad because this is a binding option. Early decision is binding. That means when you submit your application, you're basically promising you are going to attend. You're basically committing to the school before you've had a chance to see all of your financial aid offers. And so for that reason, we always say do not apply anywhere early decision, even though you might want to. So what are some of these reasons why colleges want you to apply early decision? So this really works in the college's benefit. It lets them control their numbers. It lets them control the financial aid, basically, because they have no incentive to give you the best possible financial aid offer if they know that you've already committed to attending the school. So they'll tell students that you have a much better chance of being accepted if you apply early decision, or this is what you need to do if you want to be accepted. And so a lot of students will fall for that, understandably. But those early decision acceptance rates are often misleadingly inflated by an overall stronger a stronger applicant pool, and also by special cases such as student athletes. So you do get certain people who are getting accepted early for certain reasons, and that's kind of bumping those numbers up and artificially inflating it so that it looks like you might have a better chance of getting accepted early decision, even though it's not actually the case. So even though a college might be pushing you to apply early decision, you should take a moment, think about who's gaining the most from that situation. You shouldn't apply early decision just because it's the hardest school on your list, or your parents are telling you to, or you just want to get your applications done with. It's really not putting you in the best position to have control of the process, fully consider your options, and make the best decision for you and your whole family. So just a quick example for this one. We had a student a couple of years back who had her heart set on the University of Rochester. So basically, when we had run the numbers for her family, the University of Rochester came out as one of the more expensive options on her list. And in this particular case, the same school can cost a totally different amount for different students. But in this case, it was going to be a more expensive option for her family. But she was just in love with the campus. She begged her parents to let her apply early decision. She thought this was how she could secure her spot at that school. And so ultimately, her parents decided to let her do this. So she did get her acceptance letter in December. The whole family was super happy and excited about this at first. I got a very happy email from her and her parents that day. But 2 days later, that's when reality set in. The parents looked at the financial aid award they'd gotten. They realized that this was really happening now. So at this point, I got another email. This time it was a long, panicky email about how could they have let this happen to themselves? Why had they listened to their daughter about this instead of taking our advice? But at that point, they were stuck. They couldn't not send their daughter to this school now. And so that's what's so limiting about early decision, and why we strongly urge families not to do this. They just didn't need to put themselves into this situation in the first place. Our students who don't apply early decision, they just have so much more time to make the right decision for themselves.
Okay, so secret number 3 is that the numbers really matter. And let's take a look what I mean by this. In reality, or in an ideal world, I would say, admissions decisions would involve getting to know everything possible about an applicant, right? But the reality is that colleges receive tens of thousands of applications each year. I have a statistic, and this is actually from way back in 2014, so the numbers I'm sure have increased, but UCLA did receive over 80,000 applications that year for approximately 5,000 freshman spots. So this is when numerical scores come into play. I would say that colleges rely on students' grades and standardized test scores. What they do is they see this as producing a pattern, right? So GPA comes into play, and it's actually really, really important. They look at GPA as long-term performance. So what it would prove to the college admissions officers is things like showing hard work and self-discipline. When they look at test scores, these are also very important. They look at this as the best thing they can do to try and predict how successful a college student would be, not only in college, but also beyond in representing the college. I would say, once again, GPA and standardized test scores are very important. Colleges say, right, that they strive to consider every student holistically. So if you don't have the best grades or you don't have the best SAT score, you may be submitting essays or letters of recommendations, or actually doing admissions interviews in a one-on-one setting. That's actually something Erin did for Brown. But it comes down to one of the easiest and best ways to actually differentiate students is still to compare their grades and their test scores. Having a low GPA or having a lower test score than is typically the bar for that college, if you submit a glowing letter of recommendation or an amazing essay, just please realize that it still may not be enough to make a difference. If you're significantly below the minimum that a particular college is looking for historically, it may not be possible. For this reason, what we recommend is we are firm believers in studying for your SAT and your ACT. A lot of times you'll hear it's just not possible to study, but believe me, it is. What we do is when you become part of the NSphere community, right, an NSphere family, you actually have access to ACT and SAT prep courses. If you're doing this on your own and it's, $100, we recommend definitely making the investment. It could actually be returned to you 8-fold or 10-fold through the financial aid and scholarships. Just remember that merit aid or brain aid, this could be based largely in part on your ACT and SAT scores. For an example for this one, there was a student, I'll let Erin, take over for this one.
All right, so I can talk about a student who I worked with about 3 years ago who was a really interesting case. This student had a pretty rocky GPA, some excellent grades in his honors and AP classes, but some lower grades in his elective courses. I think he even had a D one semester in gym, so he was a little all over the place, but he did have very high test scores and a really outstanding essay. So this case just wasn't as cut and dry as some others might be. So in this student's case, we had to take a bit of a different approach and think about what we knew about the ways that different colleges treat those very important numbers. So we knew some of the highest tier schools would just be out of the question for him. They might just cut him instantly as soon as they saw that transcript. But we did find some excellent private schools that we knew had a tendency to favor those test scores over the GPA, as long as he hit, a minimum number for that GPA. And so in general, with some of those more competitive or the smaller private schools, you might see more of a chance that they'll put greater value on reading the entire application, interviewing applicants, softer factors like that. So in the end, he applied to 10 colleges. He got accepted at more than half of them. And that's including one of the top private schools in the country that he was super excited to attend. So in this student's case, some of the bigger public schools, even though they might seem less competitive if you're just looking at, acceptance rates, but those schools did reject him because they get so many applications. Their applications are even more streamlined, so they're pretty much just running the numbers, and they have a cutoff point. This student's GPA is just not high enough. So he did get rejected from some of those colleges, but like I said, that one top private school, they did accept him. And so even though those numbers set a first impression, and that's super important, again, it comes down to doing your research and really thinking about which colleges are the right match for you. So in his case, we were able to just figure out the right combination of those factors and put together a balanced list that put him in a position to still get those acceptances.
Okay, so secret number 4, I just told you that the numbers do really matter, but the fact is that class ranking isn't such a big deal anymore. What we're seeing is that class ranking is continuing to become less and less important each year in the admissions decision. If you look at the State of College Admissions Report, which is put out by the National Association for College Admissions Counseling, and I can always get you more detailed information, what that report is actually showing is the steady and consistent decrease in the importance of class rank. This is over the past decade or so. In 2008, class rank was not even listed as a factor considered by the most competitive institutions. And when I'm talking about this, I am even talking about Yale, Harvard, schools like that. In 2010, the report had only 16% of college admissions counselors listing class rank as a significant factor in the admissions decision process. They really do care more about challenging coursework and good grades. So what college admissions officers want to see is they want to see that you've been taking challenging classes. Not only that, but that you've been working very, very hard to get good grades in these courses. They're going to care less nowadays about if someone was number 17 in their class versus number 18. That isn't going to be the deciding factor anymore. But what they might want to know is if you were included in the top 10% or maybe even the top 25% of your graduating class. The thing is that every school uses a different weighting system. Every school may have a different GPA calculation. So what you're going to see is that some colleges will actually just throw that out the door, use their own formula, and recalculate your GPA. This isn't uncommon. When you think about it, I mean, in theory, someone getting an A in a certain class in an identical class at another high school could be much easier. So there's really no accurate way, they're realizing, to compare those. What they do ask, and what our advice is just simply focus on taking the right classes for you. And by you, I mean for the student. Take those classes and just work really, really hard in them to prove yourself is actually the best piece of advice nowadays.
And so here I'll just give more of a general example of trends that we've noticed and maybe why this came about. So I would say way back when, even when I was in high school, so maybe 10, 15 years ago. So maybe 10, 15 years ago, class ranking was more important than it is now. It was being considered by colleges. And so, as Carmela had said, certain classes are weighted differently at different high schools. So there was a trend of students who were in the running for some of those top spots of dropping some of their hobbies or their elective courses so that they could chase those AP courses and try to get some of those bonus points to inflate their GPA so that they could be ranked higher than the next person. So what colleges were starting to see was students sending these applications in, and these might be students who were very talented in an instrument or talented artists who had really pursued this passion of theirs for years, and suddenly junior year of high school, they're quitting the orchestra or they're not taking art class anymore, whatever it might be. And so colleges actually saw that as more of a red flag. They don't care as much if you are ranked number 2 in your class versus number 6. They care more about seeing a student who's intellectually curious and has passions and cares about becoming a better person. And so they started to see, why is this happening? This doesn't look great for this particular student. We're looking for students who are committed, who pursue their goals, and who stick with things. So they were just seeing more and more applications come in where you could see students suddenly just quitting these groups or dropping classes so that they could just take that one extra AP course, which isn't necessarily what these top schools ultimately want when they're building their incoming class of freshmen. And so that's kind of where it comes from and why class rank is no longer as important as it used to be.
Okay, so I think we're doing a lot better on time than yesterday. So secret number 5 is they will check out your social media profiles. I know to those of you watching, this may just seem second nature, but for some reason, just with students in this generation growing up with technology since they were, babies, it may not just be as easy for them to realize. The number one piece of advice would be watch what you post. So whether it's on Facebook or Twitter or even LinkedIn, I mean, this is something that you need to be very aware of. I'm sure you've talked to your students about this. I don't know, sometimes maybe it's not the best piece of advice coming from parents, but it is something that they need to be careful of. When you are posting something, when in doubt, delete. So if you don't already have your students set their Facebook or, whatever social media venue they're using to private, that is another really good piece of advice. Set it to private so that that information isn't out there for just anyone to see. I hate to say it, but posting something today really could impact your student's life a couple years down the road. When you are going through your posting, like I said, if you have any question of if it's appropriate or not, just delete it. It's not worth taking a chance. I myself worked in recruiting as well as a financial background. So I could tell you tons of stories about applicants who got placed in positions and how social media actually caused them to lose their job for things they just didn't realize were going to be detrimental. I tend to love surveys, so I'll give you another statistic and you can ask me at any time for the source, but this was from an article in the Chicago Tribune Review, and they said that 67% of schools, and schools meaning colleges, admitting to Googling a prospective student. Now, 86% of those schools actually admitted to researching the students' social media sites. You may be sitting there and wondering, why would they do this? It's to protect themselves, right? They care about their reputation so much, and this is something we touched on in the very first piece of advice. They want to avoid potential what they would see as bad apples from maybe spoiling their brand, among other researches. Among other reasons. The exact same content that is appropriate for one school may be considered absolutely inappropriate for another. So that just points back to the same piece of advice. When in doubt, please delete.
And here we have, a happy family who actually recently joined us. And so as Carmela said, students these days, they're growing up with technology. They're way more comfortable and skilled with some of these things than adults are. And they might not think that something that they post today that seems funny to them, or something that they post thinking it will entertain their friends, could actually really affect them years and years down the road. And so back when I was doing admissions interviews for my college, even I would look up students online before we met. Part of it was because I wanted to see what they looked like, since we were going to be meeting in a public location, just so I'd have an idea of who I was looking for. But also, it just gave me a quick idea of who I was about to be sitting down with, where they were coming from. And so, it definitely wouldn't make the best first impression if I looked up a student and I saw that they're openly complaining about their teachers and, how they hate doing homework and how, thank goodness, they put off that assignment until the last minute and they're just doing this all over the place publicly, or making inappropriate or offensive comments about other students, things like that. It's just not making the best first impression. And so we really want students to be mindful of that when they are using social media.
Okay, so building off of secret number 5 is secret number 6, and this is that your email address can hurt your chances too. This is something you may not even think about. When you go ahead and apply online, a lot of times for colleges, the student is required most times to put in an email address. And like I said here, guess who sees it? The admissions committee. So the very people that you are trying to impress, that hold your future in their hands, are going to see that. A lot of times we may see an inappropriate email address. By inappropriate, it's really hard to explain what's inappropriate without giving inappropriate examples, is what I've found. But just use common sense. If you're trying to be funny, it could actually be offensive, I think, is my best piece of advice to somebody else. So inappropriate email addresses, as I say here, they can make a negative first impression. And this is something that's very hard to overcome. A lot of you may be in a position of power in employment where you've actually had to interview potential employees. So think about if an employee were to show up and make an inappropriate joke that you just found was totally offensive. That would be a very bad, I should say, negative first impression. It would be very hard for them to overcome that. So the same applies with the email address. It's okay to have two. If your student is stubborn and they just want to be hilarious, that can be their email address for anything else. But in terms of applying for colleges, internships, anything of that nature, please just have them create a straightforward professional sounding email account. Carmela.stam@yahoo.com would be completely appropriate. So something like that is what we really recommend.
And so, again, we can't give a specific example here without, being inappropriate. But we did have a student, I think 3 years ago, where for whatever reason, when he was first setting up his email account, his sister had set it up for him, and it was like a full sentence, and she thought it was just so funny, and it was not appropriate. But this student, just continued to use this email address. And so when it came time for to submit his very first college application, he used this email address when he was filling out his contact information. He hit submit, And then that's when he got the PDF version of his application, where it says, print this for your records. And so he looked at it and realized that that inappropriate email address was one of the very first lines at the top of the first page. And so at that point, I mean, what do you even do? You could call the admissions office, I guess, and try to explain it and switch it to a different email account. But at that point, I mean, the damage is pretty much done. They've seen it. It's there. So he was able to use something else going forward for his other applications. But still, that's just a shame. It's too bad that had happened to him. And here we have a different student, one of our stellar standout students from last year, who just did such a wonderful job with all of his student tasks and getting everything in on time. But he's a good example of someone who had a very professional, straightforward email address. It's just first name, last name @gmail.com. And here he is thriving in college.
Okay, so secret number 7 is they want you to be honest, but not too honest. And when we talk about this, we are actually referring in part to the admissions essay. So when you have the chance to actually submit an essay, remember, grades and test scores matter, they do. But this admissions essay can be a wonderful opportunity to show colleges something personal and unique about you. You don't want it to be generic. A piece of advice or word of caution, I guess I would say, is that students sometimes obsess over saying the right thing. What is the correct thing to put in this essay? And that's when we really see that they don't let their personality shine through. And this defeats the entire purpose of submitting an essay and having an opportunity to stand apart from someone else. We do believe that the best and most memorable essays are the ones that allow us to experience the student's authentic voice. You want to be positive. With that being said, please do not write an essay where you're just ranting angrily about a teacher you had and this was a horrible experience. That's something that's not going to set a positive tone. You also, again, don't want to be cracking offensive jokes in these essays. You don't know who's going to read them or how they're going to feel about that. Please bear in mind, admissions committees, they don't have access to a ton of information about you. You have to give them what you want them to know, and you really need to maximize the few opportunities you have to show them who you really are. Here at NSphere, when you become part of the NSphere family, Erin is willing to review a set amount of essays, so I think that's a really powerful thing that we offer.
So on that note, similar to the example that Carmela had touched upon, we had a student last year who he did a great job of getting his personal, authentic, accessible voice through in his essay. It just came alive. It sounded exactly the way he talks. And so it was great up until the paragraph where he decided to just go on a little rant and just start venting about why homework should be abolished and teachers need to respect his need for personal time. And he did it in a way that was funny, but still, that's not the content and that's not the message that you want to get across to colleges. So basically, it just took a little bit of revising. We cut that section and focused more on enhancing some of the other ideas that he wanted to express in his essay. And ultimately, he did get accepted at his top choice. So it was just about finding that balance of letting his honest voice shine through, showing colleges how fun and awesome and special he is, but still keeping it positive and showcasing just the best parts of himself.
Okay, moving right along, I think we're doing excellent, is secret number 8. And this is that they save spots for special applicants. So those of you listening, please do not let this be discouraging. It seems unfair. I get it. It does, right? But it's reality. So the fact of the matter is that depending on a college's particular needs, some spots may be set aside for personal cases. So these personal special cases, what are they? Of course, we always hear about student athletes, legacy families, maybe a very wealthy family who has made a generous donation to a specific school. Like I said, it's just the way of the world. It's the way of the college admissions world as well. So please don't let it be discouraging. we are talking here literally about a handful of students over all of the colleges in the course of a year. So the good news is that the impact that this has on the average student's chance of admissions, it really should be minimal. We hear someone all the time, maybe, I go to this high school and I did not get accepted to this college, but this person did, and I know that their test scores are worse than mine. There could be a ton of competing factors. So like I said, just put a positive light on this. Once again, it goes back to just trying as hard as you can to show a positive side of yourself to the admissions committee. Going a little off topic, what Erin said in the last example jogged my memory. When you're talking about a student's even social media profile, that's another opportunity. You do not want them to be posting on there, oh, Mrs. Williams' class is so hard, I really don't like her, and I'm glad I put this homework assignment off to the last minute. You know, that's just showing them poor study habits, which can be a check against you. So to combat this fact, that's reality, just do everything you can to stay positive. And that's just a picture of someone visiting WVU. It is actually a student athlete that we have there right now. Okay. Secret number 9, they want to admit students who are likely to attend. This is very true. So just as colleges, I said, they like to brag, right, about their the number of applications they receive or the number of students they accept. They really care about their high yield rate. What is this? It's just the number of admitted students who actually end up enrolling. This is what I talked about earlier. Sometimes colleges have to admit on average 5 students to enroll just 1. This unfortunately does mean that sometimes we see overqualified students being rejected from colleges. Now, they have to seem obviously overqualified. And the reason that the admissions committee would do this is because they know that that student is only doing this for a safe option and they're going to attend their real top choice if they get in. Don't deter this from making your college list though. You still want to have a rounded college list, X number of safe schools, you know, in comparison to X number of reach schools. With this, priority is always going to be given to students who have done their research. So in the case that you're applying to a safe school or even a reach school, I don't care what school it is, make sure that you've done their research. It's actually very rare that students are able to sit there and explain why this particular college is going to be a perfect fit for them. Saying something in an admissions interview like, my friend told me to apply here, or your college ranking is just the best, that's not going to be enough to satisfy this request. Just do your research. You want to make sure that even culturally it's going to be a good fit. So interviews, essays, once again, these are great places to highlight your reasons for applying to that particular college. Do not give a generic answer. Just let them know why you're a perfect match for their school. Oh, there we go. Sorry, focus on interviews and essays. And I did already cover that.
Okay, and so here we have another example. And so I guess I'll just talk about a few examples sort of more generally here. So as Carmela was saying, colleges don't want to accept someone who they know is not going to want to attend. So they don't want to accept students who are just plain not interested in attending the college. You will always stand out if you can really prove to the school that you've done your research and that you've done your part. You've thought about why this college is a good fit for you and how you're going to bring something to their college community and just why you're a good match for them. And so when I was doing admissions interviews, I saw this all the time. Like, it shocked me how many students would come to these interviews completely unprepared or just openly disinterested in attending the college that I was interviewing them for. And so, you know, it was very surprising. I would say maybe 85% of the students I interviewed would show up either not knowing anything about the school and kind of waiting for me to teach them everything about why they should want to attend this school and have me sell them on this school, or they would just show up and, you know, if I asked them, well, why do you want to attend this college? What interests you about this? Their responses would, you know, something along the lines of, well, I needed a backup school. I'm really interested in going to Yale. Or, I don't know, a friend told me maybe I should think about this school, but I don't know anything about it. And so if a student did come to one of these interviews and I asked them that same question, and it was just so clear that they had thought about why this school was a good fit for them, and they had done their research and they were genuinely excited about the prospect of attending, they would really stand out. And it was just such a difference, such a breath of fresh air, and would lead to, you know, much deeper, much better conversations about whether or not this school was the ideal match for them. And so whether it's in your supplemental essays or even if it's a phone interview or whatever it might be, take the opportunities to show the colleges why you think this is a good fit and tell them you do want to attend and you've put thought into it, because that's ultimately what they're looking for.
Perfect. And the last secret is secret number 10. Some admissions decisions can be quite subjective or arbitrary. Colleges can get nitpicky, right? This is kind of what I touched on earlier. Someone would say, but this person goes to the same high school as me and they got accepted and I had 2 points higher or something of that nature. This may be true. But if you think of how many applications college admissions officers are reviewing, at a certain point, they are going to get nitpicky. And like I said, these can be seemingly arbitrary decisions. One of the things that can happen is they may start to look outside of grades. We touched that, you know, the numbers are very important, and they are, but it could come down to the college maybe even deciding, as an example, they needed more female cellists from the Pittsburgh area. That could have set that applicant apart. Or maybe one applicant's reader, so the person that reviews their essay, is just able to argue more convincingly for that candidate than another applicant's reader did. It's going to be impossible to just sit there and try and figure out what that college is going to do with every qualified student. So like we said, just stay positive and focus on what you can do, on what you can control. Things that we believe you can control, for instance, are getting started very early in the preparation process. So we get asked all the time, maybe my student's a junior in high school, it's probably too early, right, to start thinking about this. No. You need to get started as soon as possible. I mean, freshman year or the summer right before sophomore year is like the prime time to get started. You'll have time to do all of your research and just make the most educated decisions that you can. Another thing you can do is just make sure that you do your research. Erin just gave some lengthy examples about this. I mean, absolutely, this is true. Go visit schools, look at them online. These are things that when you join the NSphere community, we absolutely help you out with. And the last thing, it may be quite obvious, is that just make sure you've showcased your strengths and show those admissions officers what makes you special. So if you have great test scores and a great GPA, you still need to be showing them what matters, why you are different than every other candidate.
Okay, so we're going to take a moment to review any questions that you might have. So if you want to just take a second, if any questions have come up, you can type them in the box here, and I'm going to just take a moment to see what we have. So we have a question regarding, so you had said that a lot of the mail that is being sent to us is just promotional mail. They're just trying to get, you know, the student to apply to the school. So the question is, should I ignore the mail that I'm receiving? So the answer is no, you shouldn't just completely ignore the mail that you're receiving. There are certain benefits to looking those over. Sometimes some students use it as a starting point. You know, maybe they haven't heard of a particular college before and they see something that piques their interest, and so that might spark you know, them going off and reading a little bit more about that school. Sometimes the summer before senior year, you will also receive, you know, fee waivers. So you might get something in the mail that says, hey, we thought that you might be interested in applying. So if you use this special link, you do not have to pay the application fee. And so things like that, obviously, just keep an eye out for the colleges that you are interested in, because there's no harm in at least reviewing them. But we just say to do so with a balanced mindset and try not to get overly excited or sucked in by everything that you're seeing. And so I know we're already over, so let's just do one more quick question that I'm seeing here, which is you were talking about GPA. What is a good GPA? And so really that varies from one student to the next. even from one college to the next, exactly what they're looking for can be quite different. And so that's one thing that we really focus on with students. We work really closely with you to develop a study plan and think about what our ultimate goals are for the career path that you're thinking about and which college is going to help you succeed there. And so we will work backwards and think about, well, this college in the past, it looks like they're accepting students who have at least a GPA of 3.3 or whatever it might be. And so we'll help you plan out how you can get there and what are some things that you can do. So like Carmela said, starting early is so important. It's much easier to try to make these changes and make these plans if we're working with a student who, for example, is just a freshman. We have so much time and there's so much that we can do to help you raise your grades. Versus if you're coming at us, with questions like this, or we're trying to make these adjustments senior year, the fall of senior year, when we're right in the midst of application season, it's just a totally different situation. And so, like I said, that's just a very personal question that has to do with your individual plan and what you're looking for. So with that said, that's going to wrap up that part of the presentation. And so if you are a current NSphere client, at this point, you're all set. You can go. We have a few more things that we want to talk about with people who are not already part of our community. But for those of you who are, if your student is due for another meeting with me, or if you had any follow-up questions, you have my phone number, you have my email address, so you can just get in touch with me and we can continue working with your student on their progress. So for the rest of you, you might be wondering right now if your family is on track. You might be wondering, do you understand what different colleges are actually looking for? And these are all huge, important questions to start thinking about. And so we have a couple of different offerings depending on whether you are a local family. So we're in Pennsylvania, Upper St. Clair to be exact. And so if you're someone where, it's not out of the question for you to travel to our office and meet with us in person, what we're offering for you today is if you contact us about scheduling a one-on-one consultation, we'll actually meet with you for an hour completely free to help talk through your family's situation. We'll actually be able to run some numbers for you. So we'll pretend we're filling out the FAFSA together and see exactly what different colleges might cost for you. And we can help you think about, what test scores your student might need, and just whatever it might be, wherever you are in the process, we'll spend an hour together and, give you as much advice and as much help as we possibly can in that hour. And so if you do contact us today, you might want to write us a private message in the chat box with your contact information. If you have a best phone number or best email address where we can reach you, that's probably the ideal way to do that, to contact us. You can also hit reply to any one of the emails we've sent you before, so that's fine. And then we can set up a one-on-one meeting in person here at our office. And that way, like I said, we'll be able to talk through your situation, see if there is anything that we might be able to do to help you, and just explain, some of the things that we might offer that could be a benefit for your family. And so for other families, if you are not local, as Carmela explained, we have just recently, in the past couple of weeks, rolled out some new online programs. So these are programs that can be done completely online at any time, any hour, pretty much. So it's just giving you remote access to a lot of our tools and resources, and also access to that online community where we're putting videos up. We'll do some more, polls, chat questions, things like that. And so it's very interactive. And so I think that's really fun. And so our special offer is if you check out our Essential program, that's one of our online programs. If you check out our Essential program today, within the next 24 hours, we are offering to give you the first month of college prep online for just $1. So that gives you an opportunity to try it out and see if this might be a good fit for you, if you feel like your student could benefit from this program and everything that it has to offer. And so in just a second, I'm going to pull that up so that you can actually see it. But first, I'm going to post here a link so that you can access it yourself. So if you follow that link, it's actually bringing you to the page where you can sign up and read a little bit more about exactly what we're offering. And so what I'm going to do now, you might see my face for a moment. So what I'm going to do now is switch us over so that you can actually see, this is the page that you would be seeing if you click that link. And so this program is basically, the basics, everything that you would need to get started with your college journey. So that includes our student handbook with all of the deadlines that you need, a timeline, your checklist. So there's just so much in there, just to begin with. We have interactive career assessments so that your student can start thinking about which careers might be a good fit for them. And that includes in-depth career and college major profiles where they can research even further. What I love is they have a breakdown of different people's day-to-day routines, so you can actually see what people in this career do on a daily basis. What is that lifestyle like? We have earnings that you can compare across different states. So what would my salary look like right out of college? There's just a ton of stuff in there. In addition to that, we have a college database. So that's where you can run a college search. You can look up colleges' enrollment numbers, those average test scores, the GPA that you might need for a particular school, just everything you can think of. We have a Right Fit College Match program where you can enter in a bunch of criteria for whatever you're thinking would make a good fit for you, and it will pull up a list of potential fits for you. A scholarship search tool, it works very similarly. You basically fill out a survey. I think it's like 3 or 4 pages, so it's very in-depth, and then it brings up a list of so many private scholarships with all of the deadlines and exactly the requirements that you would need to apply for them. The online SAT and ACT courses, I have to say, this is one of the most popular elements with all of our families. So our students get a lot of use out of these. So they're set up as 18-week and 20-week courses, but you can totally work through them at your own pace, which is one thing that I love about it. So we've had students finish the courses in 5 or 6 weeks. We've had some students space it out more. It really depends on what your schedule is like. You can go out of order if you need to, just depending on your situation. They track your progress. There's full practice tests in there. So it's comprehensive. It's really great. And then our career portfolio and resume builder. This lets you organize your goals, your work experience to get you started for finding that first job or internship, or even just filling out the extracurricular portion of your application. And then there's a college application timeline tracker as well to make sure you're submitting everything on time. So I know that was a lot. There is a lot here. I mean, I think it's just so great, and we're so excited to be able to offer this. It's something that we talked about, I would say, for maybe over a year. We've been talking about how great it would be if we could offer something like this to families who don't have access to seeing us in person. And so this is just super exciting for us. So like I said, if you want to check it out, the first month is just $1. If you don't like it, if you feel like it's not a good fit, you can just cancel it. It's completely fine. But if you do like it, then it is $29.95 a month. But like I said, that first month is just $1. And so I know people tend to pay thousands of dollars just for the SAT and ACT courses alone. So I really feel like we're just so happy that we're able to offer this whole package to families at what I think is a pretty affordable price. So definitely check that out. And if you do have any questions, we will be emailing you some more information about that as well. So like I said, that's within the next 24 hours. If you sign up for that, you do get that first month for $1. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
We've had a lot of fun doing this. I'm so happy. I know we went over, but it wasn't that bad. It wasn't as bad as it was yesterday. So hopefully you found this informative, and we'll be doing more of these webinars in the future. So just keep an eye out. Follow us on Facebook. We post a ton of updates there. So follow us on Facebook. Give us your questions. Tell us what topics are interesting to you, and then we'll just do a webinar and whatever you want. So, we're pretty much just here to help. It really is important to us that families feel like they have more control than I think a lot of families do right now, and we feel like this is just such a huge transition for parents. It's such a huge transition in students' lives. So we just want to make sure that you are putting yourself in the best possible position to make a decision that makes sense for the entire family.
So thanks so much again, and just definitely be sure to follow up with us. I think the Facebook community that you get with the package is just absolutely amazing. You can post questions and we just respond right there and then. But thanks again, and we hope to see you either at the office or online soon.